Hey guys, welcome back to some more AFK Arena. In today's video, I'm going to be doing a tier list, in my personal opinion, for the new Draft Arena format. Now, take it with a grain of salt. I am going to go through every hero in here and explain my reasoning for their position. If you disagree, leave it in the comments. I always enjoy the conversation down there. But this is more so for people just to get an idea of the heroes. But definitely, if you listen to the explanation, some of them may start to make more sense. So let's get into it. Okay, so kicking it off up the top, we do have Irons. Now, Irons to me he stands out above everyone else in the format because you see him in your hand. There is no situation in which you are not taking this guy into the battle. There are very, very few counters to him. The fact that he enters the gate slowly means that he cannot be grabbed by an Iron or a Nara. Basically, you have to have a whole team built around trying to counter this guy to be able to do it. You have to have a lot of things that are incredibly tanky or have extra lives, or there's just a lot of things you have to have, or you have to have a bunch of lunges that are going to go ahead and get him. So he's just incredibly hard to counter and just busted strong. There are some cases in which you will lose with Irons on your team, but I feel like there is no situation you will ever look at a hand and go, I'm not taking Irons. He's hard to counter. He's a big win condition. For me, there's three other top win conditions in the game, and that is Flora, Zafrael, and also Zolrath. However, all of those three, for me personally, Zolrath and Flora, sometimes I won't even take into my team if I have them in my hand. Zafrael I will always take as well, but he's not as reliable at just clutching the win as Irons. So Irons in a tier of his own, in my own personal opinion. Next up we have Talene. Talene, pretty self-explanatory. Heals, revives, just really, really strong. I don't think we need to really touch on Talene too much more. Orthros, incredible for the stall game. He's just, if you get him to survive early, really strong. The other thing is, I think a lot of people forget, he's not just a stall unit, but he does actually put that debuff on the enemy that he's up against that stops their energy recovery. So really strong for counterplay and stuff like that as well. So a lot of people I see put him just straight in the front row. Also very usable in the back row, because normally in the meta people put their front two first. Does change up a bit, but often you're at least going to have a look at one front row enemy for the enemy team, and then you can actually put this guy in the back row to go ahead and counter something threatening in their front row, which is not too bad. Next up we have Flora. Now Flora is incredibly strong, a really strong win condition. However, if you don't have the team to support her, I don't bring her. And if the enemy team has just a really thick team, and you don't have the damage to beat through it, it's not the best. So you do require counter hands to be able to play Flora effectively. I'd say 80% of the time you have her in your hand, she's going to be going in the team and a pretty good win condition. However, if your teams just don't match up, it's not going to work. For instance, if you have just a really frail squishy team with no sustain, and the enemy team has a very bruisery team, you're probably going to lose out, because the bruisers are going to get through your squishy team, and then get the Flora. It's a real balance that as you go on, you'll realize that some teams just aren't as well suited to the Flora. So early on when you start playing the game, pick her as much as you can, but with her, try and keep in mind that you really want some tanky things to stall out. However, if the enemies have also a bruisery team with healers, then you're going to need some burst damage as well as Flora to be able to get through them, because sometimes they will just wear you down. So very strong, but some situations where she's not going to be fantastic. Zolrath. Now, Zolrath, I feel like, is a controversial one. I know some people look at him and go, Zolrath is trash. He's unreliable. I find him amazing. You've just got to build a team around him. So Zolrath is probably one of my favorite units to use in this format. And if you get him with like a Mezoth, like, unfortunately you're going to have to choose which one you want to play. the idea behind Zolrath is you want to have a very powerful team that's going to deal a lot of damage with no single tanks. Like, you don't want to play him with something like a Thorin, like I said, you don't want to play him with a Flora. You can play him with a Flora, as he can actually stall a little bit for Flora. That's a different strategy. But basically, you don't want to play him with things that are going to outlast him if you're using him as a win condition, purely because he won't proc his passive. If you play him with anything that's going to outsurvive him, then you're screwed. He won't proc his passive, he won't reset time, and he won't demolish. But if you can make him reset time, he is crazy powerful. Also, the synergy between him and Orthros is busted. If you get a hand with Zolrath and Orthros, like, just put them both in GG. They're just phenomenal together. But Zolrath I really do love, but he does take a lot of thought in building the team that you're using him in. The other thing is, he doesn't have to be used as a main win condition. He can be used as an enabler, where he does have his 3 furniture, which delays the enemy's entrance into the battlefield, meaning you get a head start on getting all your effects in. So that is Zolrath. Mezoth, basically just a really thick tank, immune to CC when he's above 50%. Thick tank. Licks someone, sort of puts them out of commission. Really strong. Zafrael is actually huge in this, a very strong win condition. There are some counters to him. I really enjoy seeing a Verk in my hand when I come up against him, because you know he's going to lunge, he's going to hit those poisons, he's going to cop that. He's very, very, very strong. However, against some teams that just have a lot of control, like early control and stuff like that, he can fall out against them because he does lunge, and if he gets locked out straight away, he can sometimes not do too much. And if he does get himself around to using an ultimate, things get deleted. So Zafrael, very strong win condition, like I said before, and I don't think there's ever really a team where I'm not bringing him, because he is also, and that's something else I want to mention, he's a Celestial, just making it easier. If you have powerful heroes that make a faction bonus, it's really, really strong. So Zafrael, I never see him in my hand and don't pick him. Incredibly strong. And the last one on this list is Screg, which some people may see as weird. For me, Screg, no matter what my hand is, I'm pretty much picking him straight up. He's a really, really good tank. This format is heavily about pressure and putting pressure on your enemies. He mounts up super quick and starts stomping through that enemy line. He has these little Scregs that are going to run through as well and do knockbacks. Also, he has the passive, because lunges are very powerful in this one, being heroes that go into the enemy side of the field. He has his passive that's going to buff them, which is really strong. If you get him and Zafrael in a hand, you're looking pretty solid with that. So Screg, definitely the only non-celestial hypergene falling into this tier for me. He's just a no-brainer pick that is always in my team. That is it for that tier. Moving on into B tier, and just to keep in mind, these aren't in any particular order. This is just me dragging them into position. First up, Titus. Like I said, lunges are very powerful. The fact that you can knock back and fear 3 enemies with this guy also does really nice damage. Someone gets low, he increases life leech. You're going to be stealing a lot of health. Just incredibly strong. And Maulers as a faction are very powerful in this. As well, and if you get him with a couple other Maulers, he's just absolutely fantastic. Ezio, I was tempted to put up into A tier. He is incredibly strong, and he's a very powerful win condition. I just think he really needs the team to make him work as opposed to the others. He's not as reliable as a win condition. You really do need the strong damage to come with him. But Ezio, just absolutely fantastic. Obviously that passive executing things, you do get things that distract him, like anything that summons clones and stuff like that is going to be annoying, because you're going to be constantly trying to kill them and not having any effect on anyone else. So Ezio, really good, and I pretty much always bring him. And Khazad is another one in that next tier of win conditions, where he is very, very strong. However, he's much easier to be countered. He can be hit by things like Iron and Nara, and he's just very, very squishy, so he falls into that B tier. Same with Sophia. very strong win condition, however very susceptible to enemy CC. And also the other thing about her is she is really good just for her pyramid as well. You can buff like other damage dealers, something like Irons. If you have her in Irons, you can put her there, put the pyramid up, so if the enemy does have a clutch play where they put a Cecilia or a Thalia onto your Irons position, you know, you can basically weaken them to allow Irons to survive whilst also increasing Irons' damage at the same time. So she's just really powerful as a win condition, but also as a support. Lucretia, once again, can be a win condition, not as reliable as the others, but still very strong, and I'm normally playing her. The other thing I didn't mention is that Hypergenes, mentioned about Celestials, but Hypergenes, getting that one-piece Hypergene bonus for the defense is actually really nice in this, because once again, those faction bonus, you never know if you're going to be able to build them. And also if you can get a two-piece Hypergene bonus, it's going to be really nice for you. So that's that one. Totem Dude, really powerful in this format. I really have liked the Totem Dude. Even if I don't have any other maulers, I'm normally going to bring this guy just for the nice heals, and the totems are so distracting, not to mention the haste buff that he brings. Unfortunately, you can't plan out who the haste buff is going on because you can't see stats of all your heroes, but no matter who it goes on, he just brings enough support that he warrants being here. Odin is an absolute pain in this format. He is another thing that can counter Irons, very RNG based. I've lost games with my Irons versus Odin purely because Odin, the timing of him lining up his ult resets my Irons, and then it's just GG from there on because you're not going to get the Irons ult. The teleports, getting the stuns. This guy is an absolute beast in this format. He's not like a put in, like, he's not like an A tier because you're not going to just put him in your team and win, but it's very often that he's going to impact the battle in your favor. So he goes there. We do have next up Isolde. Isolde, just very strong bruiser. The fact that they get 3 furniture in this format is perfect. It means he can stack his attack. If he didn't have the 3 furniture in this format, he would go down a tier in my opinion. But due to the fact that we still have that furniture, he's got mad sustain, but also he's got the attack that just ramps up. So if you can put him in a team with a bit more sustain and bruiser type heroes, it really does work. Wukong, another very strong unit, borderline A tier. However, sometimes he can flop due to the fact that there is a fair bit of just inherent CC going around in the game. When we look at like Mezov, we look at Screg and stuff like that you're going to be putting in front rows. You can pair him up against one of those front rows, and when they try and pop CC on him, he's going to grab the clone, which is really nice. And if he pops his monkeys, he's going to be really strong. Very susceptible to the AoE of Irons and stuff like that, and Flora. So like very strong. However, susceptible to that AoE of destroying clones, but still nonetheless very close to an A tier for me. Twins, just the basic stuff. You can get the link if you have a very strong attack, self-sustaining team. If you have something like Lucretia and a Titus that you can slap in a front row and then throw a twins behind them, you get that link on them. Also, link just for defensive stats as well, but you can increase the attack. Really strong. Obviously, the haste, the cleanse, everything about the twins is fantastic. Very close to A tier. However, I just noticed that some games I wasn't bringing them if they weren't completely suited to my team. So that is that. Cecilia. Now, Cecilia is so good in this format. Very good counter to Irons. However, you do have to luck out on the placements of anticipating where your enemies are going to put him, but also just any threat on the enemy team. She lunges, she's going to destroy them. Even if they get an attack off, she's going to have the ring down, reducing their attack. Incredibly powerful. I really do rate this this hero in this one. So Cecilia goes into that tier for me. Next up, Rowan. Rowan, obviously, just because he's Rowan. Energy potion, health potions, energy, attack, stuns. Not much else to be said. Thorin, incredibly powerful in this. Something not just for the fact that he works so well with the stall of Flora, but a lot of things, like a lot of win conditions in this game are ones that, you know, you want to put safely in the back row. You want to have a thick front row that's going to help you get to it. Thorin's going to have his revive. He's going to have the fear, all that sort of stuff. The other thing about Thorin is I've lost a couple games to Thorns using Irons when I have my Irons, because Thorin puts his curse on Irons, brings him down to 1 HP, and all they need is a little bit of cleave damage and Irons is down. So definitely that curse is something I wouldn't overlook on the Thorin. Then we have Hendrik. Hendrik, incredibly powerful in this format. The main reason for me being that a lot of the win conditions are very bursty, and if their win condition beats yours, you're screwed. He has that protection. You have a team with Irons and Hendrik, it's going to be very, very hard to lose. Like I said, Irons, you have to have a bunch of lunges that are going to kill him. But if you have a Hendrik on your team, he's going to jump back, protect that Irons, and save him from being dead, basically until he can get at least one ult off, and then you're normally pretty safe. Next up, we have Tassie. Tassie is Tassie. You get the banish, you get the teleports. You know, sometimes you can go up against an Irons team. If you have a Tassie and a bunch of other things that can avoid some damage, for instance, an Ezio can be immune to some damage, all that sort of thing. You know, the Tassie can teleport still. Tassie is Tassie. We all know Tassie. Next up, Athalia. Very similar to the Cecilia for me. Celestial makes it easy to get faction bonus and just really strong at countering enemy picks. Often I'll leave her till my last pick just to have a look at my enemy team and go, okay, we're up to the last picks. What have they got on their team? If it's something that can be CC'd, I may as well put Athalia in there just to counter that one enemy. Aziz, very, very powerful. Now, once again, for the Hypergene bonus, really strong. Hypergenes are just inherently strong in this. He does have, obviously, the energy recovery. He's got the lockout when you do ults. Even in a non-battery based team, this guy is still going to get a lot of energy into your team, and the lockouts can be pretty clutch. On top of that, his mind control is very handy. So this guy I normally put in the back row because I wait and see, and then I try and have him as a way to counter possible enemies in the top or bottom due to his mind control, which targets the furthest enemy away. So really, really strong, the Aziz. And that's why he goes there. And then we have Stitchy. Stitchy just because he's Stitchy, just really strong damage, but also he gets the shields. Just a very versatile hero that he's not like a mega win condition, but he's just going to contribute to that damage to help your team. Yeah, he's sort of a funny one where he's dealing really nice damage, but I wouldn't rely on him as your like sole win condition, but still really, really strong. Next up, we have Silas. Now, I have put him in B tier, very close to putting him in A tier. If there was like a between A and B tier, he would be the one that sits there the most. He's so powerful, but you can't reliably know that he's going to 100% work. But when he does start using his ult and injecting things, it's ridiculous. He's just super powerful. His 30 signature item being that he increases the attack of all allies above 50% HP. That the pressure that we talk about, not only is he going to keep them alive, he's also going to give them that extra attack that's going to add the pressure onto it. Not to mention he injects someone so they become invincible. They get, what is it, 50% attack. He is incredibly strong and very close to A tier for me, but he's going to sit there in B tier. Next up, we have Verk. I mentioned him earlier. I really do enjoy Verk and just maulers in general. If you can make a bit of a mauler team, very strong. Also, if the enemy does have lunges, you have a Warwick or a Kelthor or something like that, it's very easy to go ahead and make Verk land those poisons, and the poisons are really nice. Also, his ult can do some massive damage, which isn't too bad. Albedo. Now, Albedo's really, really powerful, obviously, with Irons, but also if you get a hand with 2 or 3 dimensionals that are not Irons, even like Albedo, Nakaruru, and Ukyo, which I've had a few times, very, very strong, because obviously you're buffing their attack and defense with her signature item, which is incredibly strong. On top of that, she does have the ability, if an ally dies, she's going to go into that berserk state, take no damage, increase her damage, all that sort of stuff. Unfortunately, if she had 9 furniture, I feel like she'd bump up a tier, because with 9 furniture, she's going to go ahead and be able to actually restore health when she's in that berserk stage. But due to that, I just put her down there. It can be a really nice pseudo win condition, but unfortunately just doesn't work quite 100% of the time, so she's sitting down there in C tier. Ukyo, really strong CC, single target CC, and really strong damage. Once again, not a guaranteed pick. You know, he's really decent, but not broken. Nakaruru, really, really nice for that single target CC. Once again, she does have 30 signature item, which is really strong for her, meaning she's going to keep knocking up that enemy. but also for the fact that she's got a few cheat deaths, which can be very valuable in this format with all the bursts that we do talk about. Then we have Warwick. Warwick, once again, just one of those nice maulers, hard to CC him. He can throw enemies back into Verk's poisons if that happens. Just a really decent tank in general that can be disrupting. You know, if he can throw a tank, obviously he's not going to be great against things like Mezoth, but if you can throw them backwards, get everyone to start hitting them with that defense break, not too bad. Citrana, I was tempted to put into B tier. However, she's not like I feel like I only use her in Mauler focused teams or when I can't get a bonus. She's got the heal reduction, she's got the cheat death type feature. She's just really strong damage dealer. Like I said, close to B. I use her a lot, but didn't quite make it for me. I feel like some people who are more used to using her would definitely rate her higher. I just don't use her as much. Chicken's really nice for closing in the enemies, for depending on what you have. For instance, something like a chicken with a Zafrael, I really do enjoy. Zafrael, Screg, any of those things, Titus, he just really works. Obviously, you can still do a chicken Iron. I just really like chicken grouping things up for if you have any sort of cleave damage, so not too bad there. Rigby actually really thick in this format. I use Rigby a hell of a lot in this format and really enjoy it, but you've got to have the right sort of team to use him, I feel. Could have almost crept up to a B tier, but I'm just leaving him down there in C. You know, once again, he's my boy, but really strong in this format. Torn, similar thing. It's a bit of that bruiser type format. Torn can actually deal some really decent damage and survive pretty well. So for a hero that I've never really done much play with, I do pick him a surprisingly large amount when he's in my hand. Pharrell, because he's Pharrell. For some reason, I just don't find Pharrell as impactful in this format as I do in every other format of the game. Maybe it's just me that I haven't had him in the right hand, so he could probably bump up to a B. But I just haven't. I don't get that like excited feeling when I see a Pharrell in my hand in this format. So he's sitting down there in C. Probably could be a B, but that's just my feels so far with playing him. Keltha has been really strong in this format. You know, like the fact that he dies and he keeps dealing some nice damage is really strong. You can use him to swap positions with an enemy leader or a back row. You know, an enemy front row, sorry. So if you swap him with an enemy front row, you can increase that damage to those tanky ones, being able to burst through them faster. And also then he's going to swap over and go ahead and target that back row. That lunge effect, really strong. The tree has actually been really nice in this format for me. The heals are really frustrating. Also, the stuns that he brings once he does ult. And the roots at the start. He's just a really solid, balanced hero in my opinion. And I do use him a surprisingly large amount. Iron. Now, Iron is one that I think a lot of people would have expected to see higher. I haven't been able to use Iron effectively as a win condition in this format. Also because maulers are so strong. I think that's another thing pushing him away. People are just instant picking a lot of maulers when they get them. And, you know, dragging those maulers in on a Iron is very threatening. Whenever I see an enemy Iron, I normally wait and leave my back middle position open last. And then decide to use something that's going to counter him. For instance, sometimes I will use a Brutus in my back mid if I see the enemy drop a Iron in the back mid, just because you're like, okay, you can have that Brutus, he's going to roar and kill you, and you're going to be not much of a threat to me at all. So yeah, Iron just basically struggling due to the Mauler format, I think, in my opinion, and he doesn't seem to burst things down as fast as he does elsewhere. Just a general vibe I'm getting from him, but still can be very usable. Anaki's one that surprised me. Like, the amount I use this guy, I probably could have put him up to B. His shields at the start of the battle. Like I said, the game is all about pressure, and when you can mitigate the enemy's pressure at the start of the battle, it's really strong. On top of that, his ultimate doing the big knockback. He's got his stomp, which is going to stun at the start. He's a very strong tank, and I'm actually even considering putting him up to B tier right now because of how effective he is, and just on a whole, how strong maulers are, really do bump him up a bit. But I've got him down there in C tier. Mihira's always been inherently not that fantastic at PvP, and in this format I find it's too quick and lunge based. for her to really shine. So that's why she's down there in C tier. Still being a hypergene, you get that hypergene bonus. She has got a couple lives, can be really strong in some teams, and I've had her be the MVP in some battles. But just in general, I don't see a hero and go, sweet, I've got my hero. I'm just like, will I be able to make her work? Nomura, like I said, is very mauler heavy, pressure based, get damage out there, lunge, which makes her struggle a little bit. Sometimes the mind control can come in clutch, the heals can come in clutch, but not an instant pick. Leica, still very powerful in this format. I just haven't found myself using her as much. But definitely with the right heroes, you know, that haste buff is always going to be nice. So yeah, Leica just falls there. Probably could have bumped her up to B, but that's where she sits. Gwyneth I use more as a control hero in this. Gwyneth is very powerful in other formats when you can build a team around her. You can guarantee that your Gwyneth is going to have your highest power, so that you can have a Rosaline following her, proccing her signature item 30, and also then you normally have like something like an Arthur in front of it. Gwyneth is basically requires the proper team to work. Obviously there is that combo of Zolrath, Euron, and Gwyneth, but as you can see, all the Gwyneth teams that you build require the right synergies to allow her to deal the massive damage, and because you can't reliably get those synergies, she falls down there into C tier, in one that I commonly just use to try and get some CC on the enemy back row. Then we have Lucius, strong tank, can get those shields, good for stall, but it depends. Like I said, I've been saying it's a strong Mauler format. It's also a very strong Graveborn format as well. So, you know, he's susceptible, can be decent, not the best in my opinion. Oscar surprised me in this format. Normally I've not seen much use of him in the game at all, but just a pretty powerful, him and Thane, same sort of thing. Just, you know, agility based, being able to dodge and also deal some nice damage as a light bearers against enemy teams that are very heavy on the maulers can be very powerful. And Tandra, just really strong. I was tempted to put her up a tier, up there with Titus. I just find Titus a little bit stronger than Antandra personally, but she definitely could have crept up there. Like I said, that lunging format, very strong counter towards the irons. If you can get her positioned right, lunge there, start knocking him down, it can sometimes kill him before he can get an ult. Very powerful. Tempted to move her to B, but because I had her here, that's where she's going to stay. Then we have Thane, like I said, same thing as Oscar. Kaz, really nice. Basically, the dodge mechanics can be really nice against some of the enemy win conditions. So she goes in there. Also, her poisons ain't too bad either, but still not like a wow unit. Nara, for counter picks, obviously, she's going to be able to counter certain things with the dragon. A lot of those second tier of win conditions, if you pick her right, you can counter them and do some pretty effective work there. Just not quite as strong as something like the Athalia or the Cecilia in this format for me. Then we have Grizzle. Grizzle's just pretty decent in this format. He can be really annoying due to the fact that he is at 30 signature item against things like Flora, other AoE. He's going to survive really long. He's going to steal those stats. Just really all-round decent on certain picks. Then we have Creepy Hand Lady. What's her name? Theon. That's it. Not too bad. She falls into that situational use of really strong in Flora teams, especially if I see Flora and her, I'm instantly picking her because she can stall out and deal some nice damage at the same time and give Flora time to keep on wailing on the enemies. Cirrus, very, very tanky. Often if I have Cirrus and I come up against an Irons, I'm going to bring that Cirrus. He just has such an incredibly high health pool, and if you can heal him up at the start of the battle because he's starting at 50% due to his passive, you know, he's going to survive an Irons. Not too bad at all. He's got that bit of CC, the knockbacks, all that stuff. Really, really strong. Ninja Turtle, I put him down here because I've spoken to a lot of people who don't like him as much. If it was purely me, I probably would have had him in B tier. I just pick him a lot. I just feel like the invading with the shields is very, very powerful. However, the Mauler format really does weaken him. However, if you do fight an enemy that's Graveborn heavy, you're going to be incredibly strong. Then we have Drez. The cool thing about Drez is he does have that cheat death. which is going to be incredibly powerful against Irons comps. Because with Irons comps, when I'm playing against it, I'm just trying to think of everything that can survive through the Irons ult to be able to go ahead and win, and he is one of those ones that can roll out and do it. Soros in some teams can be incredibly powerful, in a lot of teams can be very weak. Falls into this C tier. It just depends on your enemy team formation, whether you are going to be able to use him effectively. Obviously very susceptible to CC. If you can get him ramped up and start him healing without getting CC'd, he's going to be very strong, but too unreliable for me to put up any tiers there. Now, the very situational, we have Brutus. Like I said, sometimes that raw comes in incredibly nice, and just the, the invincibility and stuff like that, but I'm not going to pick him every time. K-Source, really nice in Mauler teams, but I'm not really picking him outside of dedicated Mauler teams, so you got to have enough Maulers in your hand for me to use him personally, so that's why he falls there. Pippa, I wanted to put her higher, I just haven't. I've tried her a lot, and I'm not overly impressed with the results I've got. That could be just a personal team composition and usage issues. She may fall higher, but that was just me from my general feel from a lot of games. Lawson, the link is always nice. I've just had trouble placing him. It's a very lunger format, so if you put him in the back row, he's going to get hit pretty quick. I've tried him in the front row a few times just when I don't have any other tanks, just to get that link damage. He needs I feel like he really, really needs the right team, and I find myself often not using him. But yeah, it's pretty much about the link and also about the eye that he can put on them, but just not getting the use. Arthur, there's just too many counters out there. There's too many things that are going to drag things out of position. Like I said, it's very lunger heavy format, so you need to have some real solid back rows that are going to sit behind him. Just very situational. I'll often not pick him, and the other thing about the format is I don't want to put him in the front row, and then the enemy's like, sweet, so they're going to have back row behind him. So often when I do put him in the front row, I end up using melee behind him, and then his effectiveness is incredibly diminished, so not that fantastic to me. Estrilda, not bad for the initial CC, bit of a buff to your teammates, but Lightbearers just really ain't that good in this format, in my opinion. So she sits there. Forks, similar sort of thing. He's decent, get the banish. But once again, Lightbearers just seem very, very weak in this. Rain, similar situation. It takes too long for her to be effective enough with the damage increases. So she sits down there for me. Solace, I thought Solace was going to be a lot better in this format. I haven't been able to get her to work very effectively. Let me know if you... Solace is one I'm really curious on people, how they've been using her, because I really could not get her to be too functional. Like, the Dref is kind of nice for distracting and stuff like that. Her ult can be very powerful. Maybe it's due to the Mauler format, but if you do, once again, if you do come up against a heavy Graveborn team, I guess she can be really nice, but yeah, have to wait and see there. I'm not a huge fan. Baden I probably could have put in C, but we'll leave him down here. He's not too bad. He does get that damage mitigation with the clones. The clones can be very annoying, but I find I like using Grizzle more than Baden in this format. So he's like a weaker form of Grizzle. And also, because a lot of the win conditions are AoE, it's going to sort of drop him down a little bit. But yeah, I just find Grizzle to be a little bit stronger than Baden in this format. Then we have the F tier, which is the unreliable tier. Belinda, I cannot get her to work. I've tried her several times when I have no other damage dealer. I cannot get her to work. Her burst just doesn't seem as high. She just doesn't seem to quite cut it for me. Rosaline, now people might be surprised to see Rosaline down here. The fact that you can't see the power of your allies, you don't know who she's going to follow. She's just really unreliable to put into a team because you don't know what she's going to do. And she's a bit too slow for the format, in my opinion. So Rosaline sits down there. I'm curious to see if people like auto pick Rosaline, because I can't see anyone picking her because you just don't know what she's going to do, which makes it hard to, make her function. Then we have Isabella and Shamira, both just the same thing. I can't get either of them to work. Shamira's damage just isn't quite there. Isabella, I just feel like she doesn't destroy things and she takes too long to get there. I don't know. Just my personal opinion. Those are 4 heroes that I never pick because I've tried them in the past and I just cannot get them to work. Anyway, that is going to be it for the tier list. Let me know your thoughts below. I'm keen to see it. Happy to have this. Oh, that's the last thing. Silas goes, I didn't have an image of him. I'll probably have one overlaid actually. I'll edit. Actually, I'm going to edit it in the end. You guys have already seen Silas. Don't even worry about it. Anyway, guys, that is going to be it for this one. You will have already seen the Silas talk about him because he would have been in the whole video because I'm pro at editing. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Hope you have an awesome day, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next one. Cheers.